Hello everybody, this is Kristen. Wanted to let y'all know that we'll get started in about 2 minutes. Go ahead and get your things that you get when you watch videos and such. And if you're watching this on repeat, go ahead and skip ahead to about 2 minutes into the video or whenever you see our main theme music. In the meantime, we'll get started at about 2 minutes into the video. In the meantime, enjoy the music and I'll see you very soon. All right, here we go. Welcome back, everybody. Once again, I'm Kristen Jeffers. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. This is Open Studio with Kristen Jeffers. This is my live show that I do. It is a companion piece to the weekly newsletter I do, the Black Urbanist Weekly. And today, I wanted to launch the beginning of several messages I want to give specifically to my graduates for this time of year. As I was thinking about getting this newsletter finalized, now I've had this plan. I've got 2 overlapping plans going on right now in the newsletter. And by the way, I'm going to read a good portion of the newsletter in just a moment. But I'm going to set the stage here for what we're doing today. So I'm actually going to throw back up here our little block here. I'm just a little here on the corner. Let me adjust. I love StreamYard. Shout out to StreamYard for creating this software. If you've ever wondered watching these, how I'm able to do this, how I'm able to go live to several platforms at once and have all the music come in and have all those things happen. Canva and StreamYard are your 2 friends. And there's going to be an opportunity to work with me in a more intimate level. I'm going to talk about the special intensive VIP day towards the end of the live stream. But today I wanted to focus specifically on letter number 1 of a series. There's going to be about 3 or 4, maybe 5 of these letters that you're going to see over the next few weeks that are over top of the summer series featuring various books on my bookshelf. Today's letter is called, and I'm calling it Dear Graduates, but if you find yourself needing some encouragement, and some encouragement specifically to careers and making your way, in placemaking and anything adjacent to placemaking, whether you're in a government agency or if you are at a community development corporation, a CDC, or if you are planner in private practice, if you're an engineer, and hopefully you're not going through what some folks are going through when they're doing activism and such. You're a certified planner, or if you just do the work, or you're a community pillar, like you have a store that people come to, you cook for everybody, your house of faith is an affirming and loving space. All of those things, there's something here for you on this platform. And so towards the end of today, I'm going to talk more about how you can get more involved and how we can work together more around that. Specifically for those of you watching on LinkedIn, many of you come to LinkedIn specifically for this kind of career training. So I've got something really special for you, for those of you who are primarily LinkedIn subscribers to both this newsletter, companion newsletter, and this LinkedIn live feed. But anybody else who's been following me, who's watching, anybody who's watching on Twitter right now, I know I've got this going to YouTube, and for my Patreon people, this tape's going to be live loaded with everything else. I know usually Patreon folks, I know I usually get to you first, but you got a special thing, and I want to thank you all because your sponsorship, your monthly pledges continue to help me do this. So let me talk about the image here that I chose, and then I'm going to bring up in a moment here I'm going to talk about this image, pull me back big, and then I'm going to bring up the main newsletter. We're going to read some of it, and I can kind of give you a little bit extra wisdom. Then we're going to end today, of course, with that special offer to work with me more deeply and get yourself ready to set personal boundaries, to think about that, to think that that's possible in the world of urbanism. Yes, it is. You do not have to live in studio. You do not have to live in your office forever. I'm a living witness to that. And yes, there are some sacrifices. There are some adjustments you have to make. But there are some folks out here that have made those adjustments and they've moved on and they're flourishing. So let's talk about the image here. This is on Unsplash. I want to shout out Unsplash as well as Substack for allowing me to also be in more places at once, especially considering some of the personal boundaries I've had to create, which I'll talk about just a little bit. But I really like this image because, yeah, it's obviously a brick wall. But there's all these colors and these abstractions. And so basically because you've built this sturdy wall for yourself, you are able to go forward and be colorful. Now, in the next letter, next week, we're going to focus specifically on the body. I think you may have a smidgen of an idea what next week's book's going to be, but before we get into next week's book, let me show you this week's book. So I'm going to remove this. I'm going to get big here again for you. Hello to everyone who's just joining around the 8-minute mark. Once again, Kristen Jeffers Open Studio. And let me show, I'm going to share this week's book with you on my shop bookshelf. Bookshop is kind of like an Amazon for folks who are, bloggers, media makers, so that, more of your funds when you get books goes directly to us. So here it is. This is our book of the week from the Kristen Jeffers Media Bookstore on bookshop.org. Now, those of you who are getting my emails in MailChimp and some of these other platforms, I'm so sorry that you can't go directly to the bookshop page. Just go onto bookshop.org, search for Kristen Jeffers Media, and all of my book places should come up. I'm actually going to post a comment here. Not sure if it's going to hit all platforms, but I'm going to put this link that I just put up on the screen. I'm going to put it in the comment section of at least what StreamYard has given me. I think it'll post to some of the places that I'm streaming. I don't think my Twitter people can see this directly, but I will add a link. Okay, it looks like it's showing up for my YouTube subscribers, and it may be showing up for you on LinkedIn. But if you want this book, if you don't already have it, if you didn't already get it gifted for your graduation, please let me know and let's get it in your hands. So let me tell y'all my story behind this book and setting it. So I'm going to be honest, I'm going to refer to a lot of books that you're going to go back to over and over again. These are books that you're not going to necessarily read in order, but you're going to read in different pieces. You're going to read in places that you need to read. Now, some things I'm going to recommend that I've read straight through. Other things I am reading myself. I'm getting a lot out of it. And I think this might be a good thing for you to do as well. And I reference boundaries so much. And I have, especially in the last few years. And one of the weird things is, unfortunately, some folks don't think I have boundaries. But that's their problem and not ours. So if you're here today and that's where you are, please let's reconsider that. Let's reconsider this idea that folks that produce media, even trade media, don't have proper boundaries. Let's reconsider how we assume that certain people need to do their dues and go in the trenches and betray themselves. And so another thing I want to do, I'm going to pull this back off of sharing. I'm going to get back big for a moment. I want to start reading the newsletter verbatim. One of the things that's important for me is to be equitable as much as possible. Of course, I'm a one-person shop here. But one of the things I wanted to do is I created this video so that there is audio. So don't feel like you have to look at me talking all the time. I'm going to try to do my best to describe anything that I'm putting up on the screen. And specifically for those of you all who are newsletter fans, who've read the newsletter, who've gotten it in your email box, thank you all for being patient with me. Mercury is in retrograde. And I'm just going to blame that for why some of the editions of the newsletter came out this morning with a lot of spelling errors. Like, usually Substack is good with loading Grammarly. Shout out to Grammarly. Somebody who's been a long time reader, I'm not sure if they still read, but they gave me that idea a few years back. And I was already using Grammarly, but they also reinforced that this is something for you all. Once again, my student population, you probably would know about all the tricks and tools. Another favorite kind of trick and tool for like writing your papers is Citation Manager, and especially those of you who are going on to your master's in architecture, your master's in planning. And I'm not going to read the entire newsletter right now, but there is an announcement that I'm going to highlight for those of you who are working on your licensure, specifically in architecture, specifically for Black women. So I'm going to throw up here the newsletter. My apologies for it being small. One woman shop. StreamYard's doing what it can. Do reach out to me and let me know if you have resources with accessibility. Like, it's not my intention to not come on here. I think the LinkedIn version is captioned automatically. I'm not sure what's happening over on YouTube right now. I'm also trying to be mindful of my speech pattern and how it's picking up the captions. But one of the things supporting my work does, either through Patreon or through one of these intensives, or getting your office, or getting somebody who's gifting you things for graduation to support my work and support you training with me, is that I'll be able to add more accessibility. And so this is just one little way of me adding accessibility. If you want to go ahead, and I'm going to just put, for those of you streaming live, not sure all of where these things are showing up, but I'm going to put the link to the weekly newsletter, at least the version that shows up on my main website. That's going to show up at least in the YouTube comments. If you are on LinkedIn right now, you got a version of this newsletter in LinkedIn, just like this video also lives in LinkedIn. If you're interested in kind of a one-stop shop, you're trying to reduce your online footprint, you're setting a boundary. See what I did there? You're setting a boundary around social media and how much you use it. The good thing is that I'm posting this newsletter, this video program, and of course you can always just listen in. This is different than LinkedIn audio. I have some great colleagues and college friends using LinkedIn audio, and it's amazing, and you should check them out. Specifically, I want to shout out my colleague and classmate from NC State, Raven Solomon, who does some great DE&I work. They have something called a DE&I ER. For those of us who do this work all the time, it's a great platform. Unfortunately, LinkedIn audio doesn't allow her to save it, so you kind of have to be there live, and I don't always get there. But know that Raven, if you're watching this today know that I'm very supportive of it. I'm listening, and I'm telling my folks to come over and visit with you on Friday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern, much like they come over here either at 4 p.m. Eastern live, or they come over here later. hopefully soon we'll be able to get those conversations archived, because there's been some topics that I've definitely wanted to dig my teeth into, but things be happening. So anyway, about me. I'm going to go over here. I might be looking weird over here on the corner, some scrolling, but I'm going to scroll here. If you want to subscribe, just go over to theblackherbalist.com, click on weekly newsletter, and then this is a way you can subscribe if you don't mind having an extra email in your inbox. But if you do mind that extra email, if you do mind being on YouTube, just go to LinkedIn and just follow me. All my newsletters and videos come up there. Patreon folks, you get a special version that honors the fact that you don't really need ads, because you already paid for me to be here. You give me money, so I don't want to blatantly advertise it to you. Now, yeah, I will share my bookshop books. I will, the intensive is already in there for you. I've got a couple videos that are already loaded. All the worksheets are there. But if you want to come in and just do it in one day, definitely let me know. We'll make sure you'll get comped in. That's one advantage of already being a patron at the $40 level. No matter which one you want to go to, you can do that. So let me stop rambling a little bit here. Let me start reading this newsletter to you. But yeah, I did want to highlight that this is the description box. Some of you may be able to see this note about my platform and life being centered in a Black, queer, feminist, urbanist practice and ethic. That is why pretty much every email you get has those words in the subject line. That is who I am, a Black, queer, feminist, urbanist. Those of you who subscribe on LinkedIn, this is Black, queer, feminism meets urbanism. And I've got over here, some of you may be able to see another tagline I have: Kristen Jeffers on design, urban planning, transportation, and architecture as life as a Black woman in the modern world. That's yet another thing, and that's what you're coming here for. This is what this is about. There are so many other wonderful people that embody their lived experience and embody their bodies that may have more in common with your particular body. But if you have more in common with me, or you relate to me more, you like hearing me have these same conversations around these same topics, come on over here, be here regularly, subscribe wherever you can. So once again, this image I've mentioned before of this brick wall. And this week's newsletter is called Dear Graduates, Black Queer Feminism Starts with Clear Personal Boundaries. For those of you who are not familiar with the newsletter, who've never seen this video, so I do this live stream weekly at 4 p.m. Eastern on Mondays. That time may change, but right now that's the time we're working with. It auto archives, so you can always go back and listen to it. The first few minutes, I usually give people time to get situated, or give the platforms time to see that I'm live. So you can always skip forward about 1.5 to 2 minutes in and catch the main content, or you can just skip to my little theme song that I've made. And yes, I do write these newsletters on a weekly basis. This is for those of you who are old school, who have been with this blog, who've been following me since I first put something on this blog in October of 2011, or actually October of 2010. I had a Tumblr. Some of y'all are still on that Tumblr. So I have definitely shifted that Tumblr to something completely different. So if that is not your jam anymore, to see anything that I've got going on that Tumblr, feel free to unfollow. I know that's not you. This is where the main site lives now, here on a WordPress build. And so yeah, earlier today, I submitted this email, and as I mentioned before, some of you got a very typo written version, but this version I've double checked. And so I usually like to, with the email, I like to give you all a headline. This week's headline is that we can't plan for others and create their boundaries if we aren't in tune with our own boundaries and our limitations and safety nets. One thing I will note first is something about my theme. My theme thinks it's a magazine, like a print magazine, so you're going to get those hyphens, but and also this font, I love it. It's kind of become it's been one of my fonts. And I know other people use this font, but I've been using it since 2014, but that's also gonna go up for renovation. But for now, this is the font. And I would love to hear from those of you who do have visibility issues around what fonts are best for you. Of course, that's a boundary. Don't feel like you need to give me any free labor, but if that's something that's in your extra time, or you can give that information to me in an abundant way, like you're not troubling yourself, you don't need, let me know. I also have been Googling. Of course, we know Googling is a little different now, but yeah, let me repeat this headline again: that we can't plan for others and create their boundaries if we aren't in tune with our own boundaries and our limitations and safety nets. So once again, this newsletter is the Black Urbanist Weekly, which is a companion to this program, Open Studio with Kristen Jeffers. This is the email newsletter that highlights my Black queer feminist urbanist thoughts and commentary of me. Once again, I'm Kristen Jeffers. I am an internationally known urban planner, designer, analyst, keynote speaker, media maven, and fiber artist. And so now let's get into like the meat, as I like to call it, of this newsletter this week. So some of y'all just graduated into the real world, and I wanted to take these next few weeks to give you my own little graduation speeches in these newsletters and right here on the video, along with book recommendations from my bookshop bookshelf around the themes of setting internal, personal, external personal, and working with institutional and other folks' personal boundaries. I'm calling these little notes Dear Graduates, and I think there is wisdom here for everyone. But I've said that enough. I'm going to keep reading. Speaking of widespread wisdom, as I've also mentioned right here on the video, I'm mentioning here in the newsletter that I'm going to be doing this special Black Queer Feminist Urbanist Summer School Intensive. For those of you who are interested in that, be looking at your LinkedIn pages and your emails and such. On Thursday, you're going to get an email just about that. And I'm going to be creating kind of a special educational list. There's also going to be it'll be a duplicate of my main email list, so you can unsubscribe from the education and the intensive emails. If you don't want reminders, if you don't want to learn more about it ever, or if you just don't want to, it's definitely not your thing, there will be opportunities to rejoin that list, but I definitely want to continue to have this conversation. This is a conversation that's become very important to me. It's going to encompass its own email. So, and I realize the need to have some one-day, half-day options, both virtual and in person. So we're going to talk about what that's going to look like in that email. And on Friday, there's a link. Those of you who have access to the main email, there's a link. And for those of you who are on these platforms, let me scroll down quickly since I'm live here. Let me grab that link for that special LinkedIn webinar. That special webinar that's coming up is definitely, I've linked to the Zoom. At least for right now, it's in the YouTube stream. It may not be there, but if you're on LinkedIn, I'm going to be talking about this a lot. So don't worry, you will learn more about this informational webinar. So let me roll back up here. And I've already mentioned that our book of the week is Set Boundaries, Find Peace by Nedra Glover Tawwab, who is a good friend of one of my business coaches, and which is really awesome that she has been able to lift up her psychological practice to have not just any old psychological book, but one of the top psychological books of like the last couple of years. And so many of you are probably wondering, why are we talking about these books? Why aren't you talking about like planning books and architecture books and all these things? And I am a firm believer, and in a previous draft to this, I said that you can't, I said a version of what I've said here. If you don't know who you are and what you want to do, anyone can convince you to do anything. And for my graduates going into urban planning, going into public affairs, going into nonprofit management, even if you're just going into like a regular corporate office, or even if you're going to work at like a food place during the summer, or you're going to work at a festival, or you're going to work somewhere that's not like what you studied, it's good to know what you can and can't do. And you may not be able to keep said job, you may not be able to work at certain places, you may not be able to do certain things, but it's good to know what you can and can't do so that you work really harder on what you can do. And there are so many options out here. Like the fact that I'm doing this show from, at home, like on my laptop with a few little bit of computer equipment here was unthinkable. I mean, people were starting to do the webcasts when I graduated from grad school. And then when I graduated from undergrad in 2007, in December of 2007, that was something we could go to a room to do. Of course, NC State, we're known as a technological university, obviously, with all the engineering and all the sciences and textiles and all these different, like, high tech, or what we would call back then high tech. Of course, now the whole world is high tech. So we doing this, we would have to do this in a special room. We'd have to have a special set. You know, the fact that you can green screen yourself on Zoom. I mean, those of us who are OGs, as it were, remember having to go to a news studio and standing in front of that, and the key machine would put the stuff behind you. Now, we have these opportunities. So that is why I am adamant that we have this conversation as planners, as placemakers, as nonprofit leaders, as anybody in an office. And if you are starting out into the quote unquote real world, as it were, whatever that means, but if you've graduated from a university, especially into this pandemic environment where you may not be going into a place, or you may only be going to your office a few days a week, or you may have already been holding down several jobs, or maybe you were supposed to graduate this weekend. And I want to really honor y'all. If you had to put a pin in or postpone your formal education at like a university or a college because you had to take care of things, please continue to pay attention to stuff like this. I mean, my shelf is open. A lot of these books are in the library, like the public library. And, you know, a lot of public libraries are reducing fines, or you can just sit in the public library between your gigs, or you can bring your siblings. If you need to bring your siblings to the public library, bring the person you're taking care of who's an adult, or, you know, there's definitely ways. Even if you are in that kind of situation where you're squarely in a working class environment, and you've got to, maybe you can read these books. I know when I did like baristering, and even when I worked at the Dairy Queen, when I think I was 20 that summer of 15, I could, 19, 20, that summer. When was nothing going on at Dairy Queen, we could read books, or I had a little break and I could read something. And so please do think about, you know, coming and hanging out with me, maybe watching these videos on break, or if you're allowed to have your phones out front at the cash register, or as you're driving through. One of the reasons I've really loved audiobooks is when I've been doing Instacart and all those things, that I'm able to infiltrate this. And so yes, Set Boundaries, Find Peace is also an audiobook which you can get on Bookshop. The author reads it. So there's all these options, and that's what I want y'all to take away. If you're gonna take away one thing from today, please know that you can do all the things. But I did put 3 scenarios in here that may be familiar to those of you who are in that whole urban planning, public affairs, like kind of jobs and things that I would have been reading about, like especially after I graduated the second time from my MPA program, which was 10 years ago this month. So the mode of thinking that I was in when I was graduating this last time, well, I wouldn't say, you know, both of my parents did work for a government entity, and I can't like admit that wasn't a factor. But there were other people's parents working for healthcare. They were working for factories, and what they're looking for really is that stability and that pension. And never mind, you work part-time on a humane and cost of living adjusted full-time salary for a community development corporation that takes seriously the community part and constantly challenges and remakes the development corporation part into an entity that benefits the entire community and not just a few. That is a long paragraph, but if you are in this space, you know exactly what I just said. You know exactly what's up. You are like me, where you wanted to work directly with the community, but a lot of CDCs, you know, sometimes they don't get the funding. Sometimes they're not the greatest places to work because they absorb all the different areas of patriarchy and ableism and homophobia that tend to come up sometimes when, yes, we're organizing around one marginalization, but we're not examining the intersectionality of the other marginalizations. And honestly, that was kind of the thought around intersectionality when Kimberly Crenshaw and others have spoken about it, them being in Black feminine presenting bodies and all the other things they deal with. So definitely one, and that's kind of what I was alluding to in my next example. That's as relevant to you as well. Definitely, your parents may be paying for you to train with me at some point in time. Your parents may pay my Patreon subscription and gift it to you, and that is going to be an option pretty soon for folks on Patreon, so stay tuned for that. They may buy you this book. They may have already bought you this book, and you may not want to touch it because it's something they gave you, but or somebody in your life that's trying to be kind of bossy and authoritative and everything. And this is one of those things, now that you're kind of controlling your destiny and your future, you want to have this in your toolbox anyway. You want to be able to say, okay, and let me roll back a little bit and give you some context before I read these other two paragraphs, and then I'll go big and give you a little bit more. What we're talking about is not necessarily building physical walls. It's not necessarily shutting people out. It's knowing, and the book gets into that and much more brilliantly than me, but I did want to just kind of highlight examples of how this is relevant to those of us in these positions. It's saying, okay, these are my skill sets. These are my current skill sets. This is my current bandwidth. This is what I can do. Now, if you find yourself running up against employment reviews and needing to do certain things, you have to, this is going to help you make the determination. You may have to, in the moment, do the thing that you don't want to do, but the next time you get asked to do that, you can start making different choices in the future. The boundaries that we're talking about here for peace, like, it's having different decisions. And of course, this also gets into like interpersonal boundaries, like with your partners, spouses, parents, if you're living with them, even with your pets. I mean, now the pets can't always hear you and understand what you're doing, but, and pet parents, please don't come after me. I know you love them and they give you a lot of support. And I'm not talking about being inhumane to pets, but know that, yeah, pets kind of like kids sometimes. We've trained them and they have things to do, and, take care of yourself, even if that means, okay, I can't have my pet anymore. It needs to go to the shelter, or I need to look into moving somewhere else, or I've only been here a few months, but I'm going to start applying other places because I want to broaden my horizons. I want to learn this particular skill. These are the skills I want to learn. These are the skills I want to ask for with professional development money. And don't think because I've been harping about my coaching and everything that if you take this advice, you have to go with me, but just do something with somebody. Especially if you're in your 10th year at your government agency, my second example here from the newsletter this week. And you're worried that it might not be a good fit. It's election season, and I know it's election season in a lot of places. I'm not going to name names, but it's election season in a lot of places, and a lot of you are thinking about, okay, well, what do I want to do next? Will this next administration support my initiative? I've lucked out before, but what's my boundary? Do I want to rewrite the SOPs, the standard operating procedures? Or should I call up a few of my consulting firm friends and get them locked in as a subcontractor? Should I take some of my excess salary right now, go ahead and start an LLC? And unfortunately, it's been kind of hard to come back anyway. I'm dealing with long COVID. I'm dealing with, all the stuff that went on a couple years ago around George Floyd. And of course, now we have this Buffalo shooting and all these mass showcases of Black violence. My kids aren't doing as well. My partners aren't doing as well. I've lost family members. I need to do something different. And, I've got the experience in. It may not be an overnight thing, but I'm going to start moving forward to the future. Let's talk about these events coming up next month. Now, I'm excited, especially for my Texans who need some wins, who need to come together and really celebrate how they found out about their liberation before and how they've been trying to maintain it since. I noticed Juneteenth for a lot of Texans is not going to feel so Juneteenth-y, especially knowing that you don't have the reproductive justice that you need. But I want to send you all love in the meantime. And likewise, Pride is going to feel different for a lot of folks as well. Even though I'm going to be participating because Les has gotten some prominent roles in our main Pride here, Capital Pride, I want to also honor the fact that, Pride was a riot. Pride was about, whereas Juneteenth was finding out about slavery and then maintaining that legacy. It is not an ice cream cone. My gosh, Walmart, what are y'all doing? And you do not have to buy the ice cream cup. Please don't buy that ice cream cup. Wait until it's no longer branded, because it does seem like a red velvet and cheesecake ice cream sounds amazing, but branded as Juneteenth, not so much. So, and likewise, all of this other rainbow stuff, I'm glad that Target is being more proactive with Black vendors and queer vendors and all those folks, but this is not an excuse for your organization or you at your organization, especially if you're the only one and if you're overlapping with both like me, to throw together a Juneteenth event. And you can work on like the thing that you've already worked on. I want to shout out all the folks like me. Like I was this site was something I was doing while I was working somewhere else. Actually, I was in school while I was doing it, but I kept it going while I was working at so many other places because I always wanted to have something that's mine. Always wanted to have like a professional home to come home to. And while this site has pivoted so many times, it's not exactly in the same form. It is giving me something. I want to speak out to y'all. This is the time to set the plans and set the boundaries so that you can build, rather than build a performative event for something that is arguably, we're talking about liberation of bodies here, liberation of people who are in the LGBTQ community, liberation of people of African descent, especially those who were enslaved in the so-called Americas. And of course, all the campaigns around, we're still in the middle of Asian American and Pacific Islander Month. But of course, there's so much going on in y'all's communities. Like, this is a everyday thing. And it's like, on the one hand, celebrations, but why just celebrate? Why just honor? Why not take care of folks every day? So, and of course, being able to set that boundary and say, even though I can't come to Pride this year, I can't come to Juneteenth cookout this year, I can't plan your event this year, I'm going to be doing something later on down the line. I'm starting an entity. I have this online platform. Oh, I can listen to you. I can one-on-one mentor you. Like, setting the boundaries in our social justice movement, government, nonprofit, do-goodery, whatever, urban planning, urbanism, architecture, engineering, like transportation, water. I mean, obviously you want clean water, like, but still there's boundaries even there when you're working even if you're working at the water department or wherever you work that has regulations. Even if you're an attorney and there's regulations, even if you're a financial provider and there's regulations. Regulations are just boundaries in another form, and you just need to understand where they come from and where they situate themselves. Now, on this page, I did my own set of whys around Black queer feminist urbanism a while back. I definitely will revisit them, definitely click on them, and I'm open to doing a video of that, just of them, so you can read it and listen for yourself, just like I'm giving you a good synopsis of what I talked about earlier today. And I want to talk about my own spoons and my own big boundaries. So I'm going to read verbatim from the paragraph here. That I've had to make a big boundary by not going everywhere and doing everything, especially as I wait news about when I have fibroid surgery later this summer. However, I've managed to learn about new takeout places. I have a new, shiny, properly fitting set of roller skates. Some of y'all saw me attempting to roller skate earlier. I put the one up on Instagram recently, but I also had another one that was not so great. Les has convinced me to not post that. Thank you for taking it, but thank you for not allowing me to post that. And then you may see me anywhere, and I want to make this clear to everybody. If I can keep a mask on, if it is outdoors, if it is not too hot. Now, we had some events this weekend here in DC, and it was extremely hot, and I'm already preparing for the Pride Parade. So if we've got extreme heat advisory, if it's pouring down rain, in addition to if it's not poor ventilation, if I can't keep a mask on adequately, I cross my fingers, very rarely cross my fingers and do restaurants, but I tend to try to do restaurants and grocery stores and all the stores like when they're more empty. So you may see me, and that's why you might see me at yarn night. Like I figured out how to knit over the weekend. That's going to go up on my Chris Pattern Instagram for those of you waiting on to see what it looked like. And of course, if you want more on my professional boundaries, I did the whys around Black queer feminist urbanism to give me a sense of what feminism was going to look like for me. Because I'm a huge proponent of the spoon theory. Those of you who are familiar with this, who've had similar like moments where you've had to pause and say, okay, my body, my mind is not doing what I expect it to do. society is definitely pushing on me. So the spoon theory, it started in 2003. A psychologist came up with it to help. Honestly, they came up, I think they were, in fact, let me click on it. The beauty of, let's just look at it right here. So this is spoon theory, folks. And it was, okay, not a psychologist, but somebody that had lupus, basically to talk about functioning and reasoning. So you might, once again, you're like, why are we having an urban planning conversation around the spoon theory and personal boundaries? Even if this is not you, and I'm going to go back to my newsletter. I think I gave you a good synopsis of everything. And I've been talking about the informational webinar. There's a few other links that I'm not going to highlight necessarily this week. One on African feminisms and one on giving Black folks money no matter where they live. And since we're coming up on like around 45 minutes or so, I want to end with this. Even if you do not think this is relevant to you, even if you've clicked off because you're bored, or you don't send this to your child because you think your child needs it and not me, not you yourself, please reconsider that. Please be mindful that even I, as I mentioned, I shared one of my personal boundaries, and I've not shared all of them. There are way more. Let's be mindful that this is the world that we're living in. We are still dealing with waves. Apparently, we're dealing with another potential pandemic. Hopefully, the monkeypox will not go as viral as other things have gone. We are mourning and grieving, whether we know somebody or not. Something has changed for everyone. I know a lot of us are trying to get out here. I know a lot of y'all went to the conventions and everything to try to establish a sense of normalcy, try to get out of your house, try to move around. You know, I've been places too. Don't think I've just been sitting in the house completely, and that you can't get me out of the house. Please do. And this is one thing I want to normalize, especially when it comes to working with folks who are disabled, whether it's temporarily, kind of like many of us are, or if there is a permanent disability. Ask. Like, the terms of, like, especially if we have something that's invisible, the terms of that could change at any point in time. Or even if you have like a visible, like depending on if there's a ramp there or an elevator, don't count folks out. And of course, one of the big boundaries for you, if that is you and you're the person explaining that this is what my life is, it's like there's a balance. And what I'm going to leave you all with today, specifically my graduates, this is your last homework assignment if you're not going back to school. And if you are on the way back to school, and if I'll just take a few minutes and do this homework assignment. And honestly, for those of you who want to join the intensive, I did, until I go off on this stream, the Zoom link is there. But know that on LinkedIn, on Patreon, on a lot of places, you're going to see this information. It's going to be available to you. I'm going to be really pushing it. I'm going to make a way so that if you want to keep getting that information around, having me virtually train you around these ideas, you can get that. But if you just want to pop by for these videos, you want to pop by for the newsletter, you want to get the book recommendation, you just want to go on the bookshop, or if you here in the DMV and you happen to see me out, or wherever I'm traveling, I am going to be popping up somewhere very special over the next couple of days. And I've let a few folks know about that because it's going to be a test and in and out. And hopefully no weird anything will happen with me with that. But definitely take the time and write down what you want. Write down your dreams. Keep dreaming them and keep working towards them. Because that's what we do. We tend to... Me having a video show in some shape or form was a dream. That's why I've added it. It's not Oprah, what she was doing when she first started, but we were around the same age when we started this show. So I'm living that version of the dream. I wanted to write, and that's gonna look different. I've wanted to knit and crochet proficiently for a while, and that is happening now. Living outwardly queer and proudly Black, undeniably, like not ignoring that part of my heritage or anything. There's so many things that I've wanted to do, and so many things I've had to spell out, like whether it's, okay, this is what I'm not going to do, and this is what I want to do, but this is what I focus on, so I don't go, and I don't, And another thing about the spoon theory is you can use the spoon theory in lieu of saying that someone is crazy, or you're going crazy, or you're losing your mind. Saying that you're getting low on spoons is a better way of saying that. It's a more progressive and a more inclusive way of saying that. So do consider using spoon theory if you haven't already done so. Even if you're not planning on changing your occupation or leaving your job or leaving your community commitments, if you haven't already been using that, do that. And think about this book for your book clubs, so that you understand where people are coming from, you understand what their motivations are, you understand what their dreams are, so that if you're planning a building, or if you're planning a transit, or if you can't understand why they're still driving and why they're insisting on driving, especially if they're in a marginalized community, especially if they need it because there's no bus stop, or they need to put their wheelchair in there, some other, or the access vans don't come where they need to go, paratransit, I want to challenge y'all. Let's keep working. The federal grants are out there. Like, everybody that needs to take this federal grant period, like generous federal grant period time, and figure out what you need to do. If you're going into your own like private grant season, if you haven't already revisited this book, please do so. It is vital. Boundaries are vital. It is. Before we get into drawing maps, let's know where we're coming from ourselves. So once again, I am Kristen Jeffers. You can find me at Black Urbanist. Some of you are watching on Twitter. So right there where you are, go ahead and hit that follow button if you haven't already. Some of you are LinkedIn folks, and feel free to hang out on LinkedIn with me. I'm doing more over there now because that's a boundary for me, a nice little container to do businessy things. I still, of course, have the blackurbanist.com, where you can get links to everything, including the resource list. It has a lot of these books. Now, I haven't synced up the full resource list in my bookshop bookshelves. Bookshop bookshelf itself is the best place to go for the books themselves, and what I have added to the bookshelf. So go there if you want to get the book recommendations, and keep your eyes peeled on the emails. I will also be recording and posting the webinar I'm gonna do, and actually I'm gonna y'all remember this. I'm going to go ahead and kind of leave us here with some information about joining the intensive, one day in a few weeks. Oh dear, let me stop this, because the last time the last time I did that, unfortunately, it flagged the video on YouTube when I showed that. I forgot that music was playing, but there will be a non-copyrighted version of the intensive. I may have to edit some of this, but this version is all. This video will always live on LinkedIn. It is open to the public. My profile is set up so you can just follow me. Now, there's a lot of public information that I share on LinkedIn now. I have different boundaries there, and then finally, Twitter and newsletter and everything else. So until next time, until later this week, please do consider joining the intensive. But there will be more information about it on all the different platforms that I am on. And in the meantime, if you just want to hang out with the videos and the emails, I'm happy to have you here too. But set your boundaries, find peace, and I will see you next time.